again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to show up. It means a lot to me. Had plenty of these where it was just a handful of guys, and Bouncer and I are giving 2 talks. I hang out with Bouncer and he hangs out with me just to increase the audience. So it's nice to see a bunch of people here. Thank you very much. One of the things that would really help tonight is for you guys to raise your hand. The most important thing, okay, question? I can sit up here and go on and on about the things that are important to me, but honestly, the most important thing that you can walk away with tonight is what's important to you. And it also helps me understand, sometimes regionally, things are a little different. For instance, in Miami, we catch a lot of our own bait. Up here, bait's a little tougher, and I've made a few notes tonight to try to address some of that. But that's a good example of where you guys might have situations that I don't face on a daily basis charter fishing out of Miami. So don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question, only one that didn't get asked. So it's really important that you guys feel free to ask anything. I may not have a great answer, but I'll do my best. Anyways, I wanted to talk tonight about I'm going to go through kind of a list of things that we go through charter fishing out of Miami on a daily basis. How to find bait, how to catch it, how to handle it, and then how to keep it in the pen. And then when I'm done with that, and at any time in that talk, if you want to stop me, please do, and happy to answer any questions. But then when I'm done, I'll open the floor up to just general questions. We can talk about things related to what do we do with that bait. Kite fishing, flatline drifting, bottom fishing, use of outriggers, etc. So, I'll talk as long as you guys want to put up with it. So, anyways. So, in South Florida, especially on the East Coast, live bait is king. You go up the coast in a ways to Fort Pierce and north. The bottom gets so flat that sitting in one spot with a spread of live baits is not as productive. And I've learned that lesson a few times in Palm Beach sailfish tournaments. Only 2 times have we had success running north of St. Lucie Inlet. And it's kind of hero or zero, right? You find an edge up there off Fort Pierce, you can sit still with kites and do well in a big area of bait. But in general, the reason South Florida lends itself to live bait fishing is the topography of the bottom. We have such a concentration of depth and such a narrow band that it allows us to present baits in a very broad range of depths, just with what we gain out of a kite spread. You can do the same thing drifting. I say it all the time, an open fisherman is actually a better platform to cover more area than a big sport fish, because a big sport fish is typically just fishing a box behind the boat. But an open fisherman, you can drift lines upwind and then fly kites downwind. So just to give inspiration to those that don't have a big boat, there's really nothing lost fishing open fishermen. As a matter of fact, one of our 3 charter boats is a 26 gold line, and it's funny, the youngest guy on our team, the youngest captain, runs the gold line, and of course, because he's got a lot of energy to run back and forth and see anchor and everything he does. And the funny thing is, most days, he outfishes us on the big boats. So it's not just talk, it really happens. I watch it over and over, and I laugh every day when he comes in with more flags than us. But he's got baits on both sides of the boat. So with that being said, the most important part of our day is, of course, finding the bait, catching the bait, because that's really the main ingredient, right? So I'm going to take you through the first step. How do you find bait? And finding bait, of course, is easier today than it was 10 or 20 years ago. Technology has changed. Side scan has become commonplace in all the major providers, as you can see here tonight. There's plenty of advantages to not only side scanning sonar, but also chirp. But a few of the things that are just fundamentals that we use to find bait. Number one, always pay attention to a bird. You'd be shocked how many times one bird led us to a school of threadfin herring, or led us to a school of pilchards. Remember, they do it for a living. Their survival is based on their ability to catch bait. On a flat calm day, of course, any texture on the water. Of course, all the things that you would probably expect me to say, like a ledge, a buoy, a marker, all of those things matter. One of the things that we do whenever we're near birds or we're near a ledge or a marker is we make a circle around it and kind of grid the area. And most of the time, the bait will be located on the upcurrent side. So, in reference to what Mike was talking about earlier with the artificial reefs that he's working on, there are fabs and rock piles that I fished on that are just amazing. They'll be in the middle of sand, so you're talking about non-productive bottom in general for bait. And you get to this rock pile or this fat, and there is just clouds of bait around. Look at the piers. Look at Bud Light, what it was. That range marker to this day holds a lot of bait. So one thing you'll notice, though, when you get to those structures is the upcurrent side is typically the more dominant side. The only thing that affects that is when you have predators like bonitas or mackerel, they might push that bait around. But in general, if you don't have a lot of predators, your bait is going to be on the upcurrent side. So one of the first things you do when you go out past the first marker, you look at the current, right? You take a note on your machine, outgoing tide, incoming tide, but sometimes it's not even tidal. Sometimes it may be affected by the Gulf Stream if you're fishing buoys out near the edge of the reef. So then it's not incoming, outgoing. But always, one thing that's constant is whatever way the current's going, typically your bait probably on the upcurrent side. So, one of the important things once you find that bait is determining what species it is. So one of the things we use, and it's really one of the things that got me in the tackle business, we started it in about 2001, and you can imagine 17 years ago there weren't the choices that we have today with sabikis and so on. So Rob Hammer, who was a high school buddy of mine, invited me to be part of this. So just he and I kind of design and test, and he would sell, and that's kind of how it started in a garage, And the attraction for me was building stuff that wasn't currently built. Bait pens, sabikis, and dehookers were what we started with. And it was, I hate to admit it, but it was kind of selfish, I really needed it for me. So I always told him, hey, I'll build these, but I'm not sure we should sell these. I think I just want these for me. I did have that conversation with him, and it didn't go very far. But at least in the beginning. So this rig here is an example of that. Half red, half green. The 4 red hooks are at the bottom, and the 4 green ones at the top. This rig was really built after Bud Light was here, and it's because a Manhattan like red. Who in the audience has ever seen a red ribbon rig or heard of a red ribbon rig? A few, yeah, you're showing your age. When I was a kid, that's what I used at the Gino Pier. Yeah, I'm right there with you. But a red ribbon rig was what the Manhattan would attack and get caught in the rings. And Pete Schultz from Fishing Tackle Headquarters gave me my first job. I was like 10 or 11 years old. He paid me $1 a dozen for Manhattan with a red ribbon rig. Anyways, so that's proof that red is attractive to Manhattan. Now you take that same rig and throw it in threadfin herring, small threadfins, it doesn't matter. And that's why we build a rig that's half red and half green. So the reason I went through all that is when you find that school of bait, you don't always know the species. Yeah, threadfin herrings mark a little higher and they're a little more open, but I have seen threadfin herrings that are a red ball like sardines. So you're not always 100% sure, but when you throw a red and green, something's going to bite it. Whatever it is, blue runner, threadfin herring. We're so blessed here in South Florida to have all the species. This is a good rig to test what's there. So that's what I would recommend. Our rigs have letters as an acronym. The RG is for red and green, the F is for fluorocarbon, 4 is the hook size. So I would recommend any rig, whether it's an R&R or a Hayabusa or any of them, that have F, this a fluorocarbon rig, and for 2 reasons. Not only is the bite generally a little bit better, but fluorocarbon has a hard shell, so when you hook that 1.5 pound runner, where you get that full string of sardines, and there's just so much pressure on the rig, your odds of chafing the line are less, especially when you get a couple blue runners and we're pulling in opposite directions. So we've kind of evolved to we primarily sell a fluorocarbon rig. So all the rigs I have here are fluorocarbon. We do have, an all green rig. Let's say you're in Stewart and it's just threadfin herring, there's greens. We would switch over. We'd go from the red and green, and as soon as we saw they were herring, as soon as this rig gets worn out, we wouldn't take the rig off as long as we're biting it, but as soon as the rig gets worn out, we go to an all green. But if we're at Jupiter Inlet on a rock pile and the sardines are biting, we'd stay with the red and green. I didn't bring one tonight, but I have one that's all red head. So that's kind of the idea behind the designs of the rigs that we have. We're trying to give you a starter rig and then an all red or an all green if you decide that's what's really biting. But on a charter fishing in Miami, this is our #1 rig, and to be honest with you, very few days do we go to an all red and all green. I mentioned a couple situations that I would switch, and that would be Jupiter Inlet, sardine fishing, or somewhere else where there were a lot of sardines. They really like red, man-made government cod, or maybe all over inlet. And there are some pilchards up here occasionally in Lauderdale, all red. Red's your friend for man-made. And there's one other situation I'm going to tell you about that's kind of an unusual situation, but it really works. And I mentioned it goes back to my comments about trying to talk about things that matter here. I know here you angle out on the dive buoys and get the ballyhoo real good. And believe it or not, I usually can outfish somebody with shrimp and a cork, shrimp on a hair hook, with a sabiki with no shrimp. The difference in how we rig, though, is we take a cork and add to it a lead. So in other words, I would take this rig that has the lead and I put this cork with it. Now that sounds pretty strange, but the idea is don't let the lead sink. Because think about it, if you're on that 10-foot reef and you got 100 ballyhoo back there, you throw just the lead, it's going to sink like a rock and you're going to catch one of the yellowtails. But as soon as you put that cork on there, now you have the weight that you need to keep the rig tight when you hook up, because you know what happens when ballyhoo bite, they spin up. So you need that resistance, but you also need the flotation. But anyways, that cork and lead, that'll really pay off. Throw it. One other trick with ballyhoo. When you see ballyhoo near the boat, maybe where Arthur is, a lot of people want to throw it right in those. But I throw it way behind them, and then I'll drag that rig through them. And believe it or not, ballyhoo are like little sailfish. They like to chase it. And so you'll be winding it slowly on the surface with that cork, and all of a sudden you'll see one or two break away from the school, start chasing. Just hesitate for a second. They'll eat it, and then hook them. It's pretty fun. Sometimes I don't lose bait pet. So, any questions so far? I've covered quite a few things. I just want to make sure I wasn't going past anybody. So, one of the things that's really important when you do bait fish is how do you keep the rig from getting tangled? That's a common problem. I probably shouldn't tell you this because I'd sell a lot more sabikis if I didn't teach you how to use them. It's like my wife, she said, why do the dehookers float? Anyways, so the sabiki, of course, the hooks, if you push them together on a rig, they're usually just shy of touching each other, right? But one of the things that happens is when you get bit, almost every fish swims up. It's funny, it's just like a billfish. I mean, swordfish do it. Blue marlin, sailfish, dolphin, almost everything wants to jump. And most bait fish are the same way. There's a few that dig, like blue runners will dig, and little bonitas will dig and stuff, but most of your scale baits will try to rise. And the reason I talk about understanding that is that lead is really the key to keeping the rig from tangling. So, especially when you're just starting out in school and you don't know if they're, giant thread fins or giant sardines or whether they're 3-inch pilchards, go with a little heavier lead than you think. We just take a piece of 20 or 30 pound line and tie a loop on an egg sinker. Of course, you can buy the bell leads with the wire on them, but these are obviously a little cheaper to make. And we keep different. One of the other reasons I like doing this is it gives me a little bit of a leash to grab when I pull the rig out. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I'll ask you a question, see if based on what I just said, see what you guys think. A goggle eye rig, 8 hooks. How much weight do you think we would fish on that? Just take a pound. That's the low end. We usually fish 2 pounds of weight. And I've had them lifted. The best night I ever had goggle eye, I would free spool it as fast as it could go. They were just so thick I had to try it. As fast as they would go, it would stop the weight. And I would start winding, and I could wind about as fast as I wanted to, and they were swimming up with it, and it was, full stringers, 8 at a time. So I just want you to understand how much weight I'm talking about. I've actually fished 3 ounces of lead on a pilchard rig. So let's say you're in Government Cut or in Haulover, and there's a big, deep school of pilchards. Do not go with less than 2 ounces of weight. And here's another thing. When you let that sabiki out, never ever cast a sabiki. Let me see if I can turn this on. I'll show you why. Never cast it overhand. And the reason is, you see what just happened? The hooks went right by the guides. As soon as the hooks go by the guides, you're inviting calamity. Because as soon as the hook hooks the guide, it doesn't end well. I mean, it's well for me, but not for you. But anyways, sabikis, I always, here's my little spiel every day in the short book. Bring your roller straight up to the rod grip. Pick up the line off the rod grip. Swing it underhand. See, there's no way it can tangle. Then when I jig, a lot of people, like, I don't want. Sorry about your rug, Peter. I got a dehooker. So when you go to jig, I see all kinds of techniques. It's pretty fun to watch. You see the guy who's, thinks he's hooking a blue marlin, and then there's the guy that just sits there and doesn't move the rod, and then there's the guy that's just, like on a roller coaster. The best I've ever seen is lift the rod high and stop it 2 or 3 times on slack line dropping. And the reason for that is, believe it or not, most fish, including guy lines, remember I mentioned about free schooling? They like to eat a falling bait. In nature, what do you think happens when predators come up to little shrimp or plankton? Where do they go? So their whole life they've been pursuing things going down. Very rarely, the only time they may go up would be near sargassum. But how rare is it for us to fish for bait fish that are eating shrimp and sargassum? Maybe the little blue runners that we catch, offshore, but you get the point. So I like a falling rig. Now, one other little trick, when you hit the water, remember I said just flip it underhand or sidearm, but never overhead. When it's dropping, I never let it drop more than about 5 feet without stopping it just for a second. And then 5 more feet, stop it. 5 more feet, stop it. And then you hit bottom. And what you're really doing when you stop it, you're not really jigging it. You're really saying, are they there? Are they there? Are they there? Oh, they're there. Okay, got them on. Now, you're going to keep that line tight, right? You want to pull against the lead so that you keep your rig straight so the hooks can't connect. How many times have you had baits on, and you had a bunch, and all of a sudden you get up to the boat and you got 1 or 2 baits, but you got a bunch of hooks hooked together. Guess what just happened? The 2 baits swam together, and the 2 hooks became dehookers. Because now, all a dehooker does is it holds a hook upside down and rigid, and the bait shakes and it comes off. Whether it's gravity pulling it off, or whether it's the action of its fins, any pressure against that hook that's held rigid enables the hook to come out. So, just so you know, when you're in bait and you start coming up with hooks together, that means wind a little faster or add a little more lead. So those are your 2 solutions. Can I get you to hold run? Can I get you to hold mic? Actually, I may need you to. Let me see the lead. So now, say we got a bait on. One of the things that happens once you get the bait on, remember I said you're going to lift up, let it fall, stop it, stop. You're kind of the same deal. Is he there? Is he there? Lift up again. Is he there? Is he there? That's kind of how I like to jig. As soon as you feel him there, you're going to wind slow. Just keep a little bit of the rod. Don't wind fast. 2 things happen when you wind fast. One, you're pulling the rig out of the zone where the bait was, right? You just hooked on it. Why remove it? So let it hover there as long as you can. That's how you get your doubles and triples. And secondly, when you wind fast, you run a bigger risk of pulling the hook, right? There's no rush. And another thing people do, they generally have the drag too tight. You'd be surprised at drag settings that I see when I see rigs start breaking and I go down and I pull on the reel, it's like 5 pounds of drag. You don't need 5 pounds of drag. You need maybe 2. What I like actually is when you do get a bunch of baits on, as long as you don't have predators, don't be afraid to let them pull a little line. All they're going to do is pull a foot or 2 of line, like a couple runners. And if you'll just let them pull that couple feet, then you'll get them right back and you'll be able to get them to the boat. Okay, so now you get them to the boat. So, I got the bait on. One of the most important things is grab the lead. The worst thing you can do is leave the rig like this, and now you can't get to the lead because you don't have it wound all the way. So, see that bead I got on the tip? That's so we don't damage the tip with a snap swivel. Also, if you need to change rigs, the snap swivel makes it quick. You don't have to tie a knot. You don't have to wear these funny glasses. So, one last thing I want to tell you, when you get baits in the surface, and just watch this next time you're in a lot of bait, you get 2 or 3 baits on there. Do you know where most of the baits are lost? Who would guess? Is it the initial hookup or at the boat? Boat. And you know what happens? They're just like a kingfish. What's a kingfish do at the boat? He gets close to the boat, almost out of the surface, boom, he takes off. Next time you're in big redfin herring or a lot of any bait that has some strength, watch what they do. If you'll slow down for the last 2 feet, just really slow down, just let them make that one little run and then lift them, you'll lose, it may only be 10 or 20 or 30% fewer baits lost, but at the end of the day, that adds up. It's tournament fishing, it's all about percentages. Okay, so I get him out of the water, swivels his tip, grab the lead. Okay, now I need you hold that over there. Okay, so the idea is you hold the lead, you got the rig wound all the way up. Use of the dehooker. Use of the dehooker is nothing more than to grab the hook, get it on the dehooker, get it upside down, and shake it. That's all a dehooker is for. It's for nothing else. I see people all the time twisting it and shaking it and sidewaysing it and bottom, and it's just upside down. Get the hook upside down. And remember, this is a stationary rubber bait. It doesn't want to come off. But as soon as I get the hook upside down, it'll do that all night long. So our dehookers we make with a flat spot. That's so that you don't even have to look. When you grab it, you feel the opposite side of the jaw on any of them. This one goes around your wrist. So it's easy to get to. You don't have to worry about it when you're not using it. So the guys that like to hold them in their mouth, I made this one with a little flat spot. So I'm not a big fan of that. And then medium wire, heavy wire for bigger fish. So that's great. One last thing I was going to go over. You're not off work yet. Near the top of the rig. Most people stand at the back of the boat and they hold the rod out. Where's the bait? Over the side. We're not winning yet. We're only winning once he's inside the boat. Because then if he falls off, we still have him. So let's say we have one at the bottom and one at the top. Which one would you take off first? Top. Man, you guys are good. I need you to train my crew. No, I'm just kidding. Because you have no idea how many times I go, get the top like that. Don't worry about that one. All right, hold that for a second. So you position this one over the well, angler backs up. As soon as, if this is a live well, get him over the center of the well. In the well. Thank you. You're off duty. So, good job, Steve. Yeah, Steve. Steve. Good job, Steve. So, no, seriously, even though these things seem kind of fundamental standing here, and we talk about it, time to think about it, you'd be surprised on the water how many times people don't think about these little details. But it's the difference between not having success or not having fun with a sabiki and having fun. Once you learn how to use them and how the dehooker works, everything gets a lot easier. So before I move on to anything else, any other questions? Man. So the question was, goggle eyes, how deep would we fish for them here, or in Miami, or further down? So the answer is, interestingly enough, you do catch them shallower in the Keys than you do in Miami. The best night I ever had was in 230 feet. There was almost no current, no wind, and we were sitting on them. And that was right off Government Cut, of all places. I mean, you would think that's not great, but that night it was amazing. And I was catching them for a tournament, and we caught over 60 dozen. Had to go in once, to get unload. But I mean, that can't happen with that was the night I was talking about with the 2-pound weight and free spool. They were just solid under the boat. And one more interesting thing is we didn't really cover it yet, is what do you do for chum? And the question about goggle eyes brings me to that. Goggle eyes are the only bait that we don't use chum. the chum for goggle eye is a light. And what happens, the eyeball of the goggle eye is so big and so sensitive to light, they're really preying on plankton and microscopic fish and shrimp that come to the light. And what they really like is the edge of the light. Now, I'll just take you through a quick dissertation on how when I commercial goggle eye fished, the way we did it, and it may be different now, but this is the way we had success. I used a painter's light, and the reason is I don't like a super bright light. It's no different than snook fishing on a bridge. If it's a super bright bridge, guess where the fish are? The edge of the light, right? So, same thing with goggle eyes, but I would use 12-volt light bulbs in a little painter's light. I'd clamp it onto the spring cleat so I could put the boat in drift, and I could turn it wherever I wanted. If it was windy, I might, different conditions caused me to point it in different ways. And I would start out with a 50-watt bulb. And I actually didn't fish too much with a 50 because I knew those baits were going to be way out on the perimeter of that light. And then once I started marking them and started catching maybe one or two, give it about 20, 30 minutes, unless it was a fast drift where I'd have to do it faster. But then I would change that bulb and go down to a 25. You could do the same thing today with a rheostat, but once they started biting, I would dim the lights more and more. And I would go all the way down to a 15-watt, 12-volt bulb when they were really thick, and you could pull them into that, you were in business. So keep that in mind. Maybe it might even be a matter of moving the light inside your boat where it's more, there's more shade. Whatever you do to gain that advantage. I found that there's plenty of really high-tech lights out there, and none of those were there when I was doing it. But that painter's light, we had a lot of good nights. And it's funny, in later years, I got the big fancy lights and I didn't catch as many. So, that always came back to me. So, we'll talk about chum a little bit for the other types of bait. Remember I talked about up current side of the marker or any kind of artificial reef. Chum is always your friend in most cases, unless you're dealing with mackerel or blue runners or something non-desirable, right? So as long as you didn't have something that you were chumming that caused you problems, I do like chum. And we generally will get the baits, eating better and more concentrated. We usually use a 7-pound block of frozen chum. There are other things you can use, but that has worked best for us. We use a lot of that tournament chum, the blue label, and I'm not going to say any of them are bad, but that's what we've had good luck with. I think it's made by Bionic. Any other questions before I go off of chum? Okay. The one thing I want to mention about dehookers is dehooker selection is important. These two dehookers have the same diameter wire. And the rule of thumb on dehookers, our sabiki will tell you, like this sabiki, it says suggested dehooker size SDH, small dehooker. Both of these are smalls. And the reason is the gap of the hook should be at least twice the diameter of the wire. And the reason for that is if you're ever going to put bait in a bait pen, if you damage their lip, well, that inhibits their ability to eat. And eating is what causes them to survive. So eating is closely tied to success in pinning bait. If you use a fat dehooker, like if I were to use that medium dehooker, which is really like a goggle eye dehooker or a yellowtail dehooker, if I use this wire on that little hook, I'm going to damage most of their mouths in the dehooking process. That's one of those little things that you kind of school of hard knocks, I had to learn the hard way. Why are they not eating? Why are they dying? And you look at them, they all had, it's not just the damage you do that day, but remember what happens to us if we have damage to our tissue. It deteriorates, right? So pretty soon their mouth is more than just a little piece you took out. Their mouth really gets deformed, and then they're not successful at eating. And they don't seem to regenerate lips too well. I mean, they regenerate some parts of their body, but lips don't seem to come back as well. And maybe it's because of Arthur could help us with that a little better, but I just noticed that the result is really negative with the too large of a dehooker. So not to spend too much time on it, but it is a really important fact. So this is the dehooker I would use on our bigger rigs, like our goggle eye rigs. And then this dehooker is really strictly for game fish. Yellowtails, I call this anything from 2 pounds and up. So a 2-pound yellowtail, this is probably one of the nicest things you can ever do to a short dolphin. Right here. Everybody wants to grab them and put them under their arm and grab them with a rag and grab them with a glove and let them bang on the deck. Arthur can really fill us in a lot if he wanted to spend some information on survival rates. Survival rates are based heavily on slime coat, and the less damage we do to that slime, the better. So when you have a dolphin, the way we do it on our boat is if the dolphin's even questionable, whether he's 20 inches, he gets dehooked overboard. And the way this dehooker works is you want to take 2 to 3 wraps within 2 feet of the fish. So what we do a lot of times on spinners, we'll actually use that bait rod while we're dolphin fishing for the small schoolies, and then we'll have a 20-pound rod, same deal, a bead and a snap. And we take yo-yos and make little dolphin leaders, like 3.5 feet long. So that when we get one that's hooked deep and he's a keeper, he just goes in the box, we unsnap the leader, put a new leader on, we have him already in the bait box with a chuck on or a bear hook ready for a live bait. So what happens is when I go to clean the fish, if you cut that leader off right at his lip, or you snap it off, then when I go to clean the fish, I don't see the hook. Not that that's a big deal, but in the charter business, not only is that hook important, it's nothing's wrong with it, I like to reuse it. If you have a long leader hanging out of his mouth, I can get to it and retrieve it. But also, if that fish head ends up in the stomach of a shark or something else, that eats it, whether you take it offshore and dump it or whatever happens, I don't like leaving hooks in carcasses. So it's a little personal thing. So the hooker is really about being really, I guess, good about helping the fish survive. So this is the bend of the hook that we would use when we have an exposed hook. But when let's say you have a wahoo or a kingfish and the hook is inside of his mouth like a treble hook, you can't get to it. That's where this bend works. So you pin the head in the corner and you can hold on to the leader and push the hook out of the deeper part of his mouth. So this is a push-pull dehooker. We have a little hole, you can put a lanyard, but we just give you the hole. We don't, because as soon as I put a rope on it, somebody's getting pulled over and I'm getting sued. So put your own rope on there. But I can have a hole. My wife's a lawyer, can you tell? Anyways, so yeah, that's floats anyways, that's right. And I think that's all I got to say about that.